Our foreign partners are telling us this will cause violence and deaths. Our foreign leaders have approached the government and said, you do this, this will cause violence and deaths. Our own intelligence community has assessed that this will cause violence and deaths.
Americans deserve to know what their government is doing to protect them, most of the time. For in this world of dark secrets, double dealing, and shadowy killers, there are secrets that need to be kept, procedures that need to stay in the dark, because anything less could lead to more innocents being killed and the inability to protect ourselves. To that point, let us welcome back former veteran CIA analyst, many times decorated for her service and analysis. Lisa Ruth joins us in studio. Lisa, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Here we go now. The CIA torture report. Senator Claire McCaskill has called this a gut check time for our democracy. Dianne Feinstein, the California senator, says this is something that must come out. And you've got other people who are saying, if this does, you are just putting fuel to the fire here. Who's got it right?
We have to start with even a broader thing. This is, although we're saying it's a Senate Intelligence Committee report, this is only the Democrats. Keep in mind, the Republicans did not sign off on this. The Republicans did not participate in this. That in itself concerns me a little bit, and not as a partisan issue, but the fact of there is a divide there. So we start with that. Is the information accurate? How accurate is it? General Hayden came out and said this is absolutely not accurate, absolutely, unquestionably not correct. We know that the people who did the investigation did not talk to Hayden, did not talk to the CIA people. So, we start with this. Then we go to the question, if we're going to release information that may not even be accurate, how much value is there going to be? And how much blowback is really worth it? I question this. I think your point is exactly right. Sometimes there isn't an advantage to making things open. And I hate to say that, but in the intelligence world, there are things that we really don't need to have.
Let's dig into that for just a second here, because I guarantee you there are people watching us right who will say, wait a minute now. We need to be transparent. There's a need for the American people to know. This is a culture, if you will, around the world that deals in secrets.
Yes.
The more you keep from the bad guy, the less chance there is that the bad guys will be able to come and kill you. What will it take to make people realize that this is the only way that we can operate in this current global atmosphere?
The unfortunate truth is democracies around the world have intelligence services, which really are only able to operate as long as their information is secret. And I will give you an example. WikiLeaks. When all this came out and the WikiLeaks information came out, a lot of people thought, wow, this is great, almost like reading a novel. Let's see how the CIA operates. We know for a fact, this is not speculation, but sources were killed in Afghanistan. The Taliban took the information from WikiLeaks, arrested these men, and I say arrested them, took them and beheaded them, killed them on the spot. These were people who were working with the United States to try to help bring democracy to that country. There are very concrete repercussions for this information being leaked. People die. And you can sit there and say, well, but we should know. Not really. There are things that are not public knowledge. There are things that are classified.
Then how do these people live with themselves? I mean, I hate to ask just a broad question like that, but if we have members of the American lawmaking community who are supposed to be there making sure that we can best protect ourselves, and then you have the CIA thinking, here's what we're doing. We're out there doing our job, putting our lives on the line, and yet our government insists that our secrets be known. How can somebody do that with a straight conscience?
It is really something that is, for the intelligence community, we don't understand it because, and especially when people who are the ones doing the leaking are the people who took a vow of secrecy and to defend our country. Because really when it comes down to it, and I'm sure there are mistakes, and we can debate for hours whether there have been things that are problems. Ultimately, the job of the CIA is to keep America safe and to keep Americans safe. And that's really what we're trying to do when we're out there in the field. It's not that we're playing games or doing rogue operations. We're really trying to keep this country safe.
What about the waterboarding issue that always comes up? People will say, we should be better than that, and we should not be the guys taking that kind of action.
And that's one of our ethical dilemma questions.
Sure.
Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, I think what we have to look at is whether it's legal at this point. If it should not be legal, then I think the government should make a case that it's not. As of right now, what we know is that these were done by an executive finding that the CIA, again, this was not rogue operations. These were approved by the government, by the Intelligence Committee, by Justice. So The question of whether it's right or wrong is a different issue. For right now, it's legal.
It's legal, and that is the biggest point. Okay, we're going to take a break, come back. We return with Lisa Ruth. Latest on fewer prisoners at Guantanamo. Also want to deal with the issue of Luke Summers and the rescue attempt, if you will. And also what is happening now in Afghanistan. And at 51 minutes after the hour, lessons learned 73 years ago that must never be forgotten. It's coming up right here on MidPoint. Welcome back, and let us welcome back to MidPoint. Former veteran CIA analyst Lisa Ruth joins us here in the studio. Let's go ahead and clean up the CIA report with one more thing here. President George W. Bush, apparently in the report, we're told that there are indications that the CIA lied to him, yet he is coming out and saying, wait a minute, these are our people, we backed them 100%. I've talked to people who don't see this as really very odd at all. They say that that's the way this president is, and he will back his people and not take them to task.
Well, first of all, I think that is part of it. The second part of it is, what we were just saying, there's a lot of opacity here. We still don't really know exactly what happened and who was told what. There's different levels of briefing. Again, was it Bush or was it his intelligence advisors? And until we really know that, I don't know how much we can make from this, although it is something to be said to stand by your people.
And that is what he will do indeed. Let's go ahead and talk about now the Luke Summers failed attempt, the failed rescue attempt. There were those people saying that, wait a minute, this shouldn't have been tried. I found it interesting that the parents said, our son would not have wanted this, and our son would probably still be alive today. With all due respect, your son probably would not be alive today because they were going to kill him. Was this is a tough one because we don't know all the details, but do you get the feeling that they went in and weren't really ready for this? Was this a rushed attempt, or do you feel they really were ready and did everything they could properly?
I think, as you said, first of all due respect, these people lost their son. So certainly we have to take that into account. I actually think this was a good thing. I think we are trying to change the game a little bit. We've talked about how ISIS has changed the game in terms of taking hostages and going after them and killing them and using them as leverage. With this very small thing, even though it didn't have the result we would have liked or that anyone would have liked, what I think we're saying is we are no longer going to stand by. And yes, you should be looking over your shoulder because we may be coming in. There's a question about the intelligence. We know that they tried one attempt. We thought we knew where he was, and they went in and he was not there. Intelligence with terrorists is extremely difficult. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how awful it is to try to hit the terrorist target. That said, we were right. We knew where he was. Things went wrong. It was a tragic mistake, but I actually think that going in and trying to get him out had to happen.
But what about these, and many of them are on the left right now, who are saying, let's reassess. Maybe we should be negotiating with the terrorists instead of going in and trying to rescue them. That's absurd.
Absolutely. And I will also say we have negotiated with terrorists. We don't like to talk about it too much. We have. It's not.
But to make a policy of it is absurd.
Horrible strategy. Again, you and I sitting here know it's a bad strategy. These are not people who are going to hold to their word. And really and truly, we know if we give them $200,000, they may not turn them over, and then we have to give them $1 million. This is a very, very bad strategy. I think going in and trying to get them, using all our intelligence resources, marrying them up with our military capabilities, I think that's a good policy. I think this is a tragic ending, and the whole issue with the South African, we didn't have a liaison capability of knowing that he was there because that was a private group, and the South African government didn't share that information. That's also incredibly unfortunate. But by not taking any action or by negotiating, which I think is a terrible, terrible option, that's a no-win situation.
Got about a minute left here. Guantanamo Bay has released more prisoners. They are heading for, and I have to tell you that I just went like this when I heard it. They're heading to Uruguay as refugees.
They are indeed. And Mujica, president of Uruguay, has said they will not be monitored. They can leave anytime they want. They are not political prisoners. So where does that put us? Is
there still to this day the thinking in the intelligence community that despite the fact we don't know everything about all of the people at Guantanamo, that they are still high-value individuals and we should not be releasing them in the story?
There's absolutely very much that thought. And while the Uruguayans may not be monitoring them, I can tell you that our intelligence services will be watching them to see what they're doing.
But it's more work that we have to do now, and it's more bad guys sitting out there. They are going to close Guantanamo eventually, and they're all going to be out on the street.
Yes, they are. Or they'll be maybe on U.S. soil. There's about, there's still going to be, there are some who we cannot release. And the thought of the administration is they're going to bring them into the United States on U.S. soil and try them here.
Always ceases to amaze me how we just don't quite get the whole concept of bad guys sometimes. Lisa, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, when we come back, the words of a president 1 year before America and the world changed forever ring true even more so today, 74 years after they were first spoken. That's Telling It Like It Is, right here on MidPoint.